Welcome to the Better Outcomes podcast, where we discuss all things leadership, sales, and communication in Australian business. At Better Outcomes Training, we provide world-class training solutions for businesses who want to arm their teams with cutting-edge skills to lead better, sell better, and enjoy more success, purpose, and profit from the work they do. For a full breakdown of all the courses we offer, visit www.better-outcomes.com.au. There's also a link in the description. Now, on to today's podcast. Enjoy.
Hey, welcome everybody. We're back. Another podcast episode, ready to go. I'm here, feeling energized. I've got a day off, t-shirt on to suit, going full relax mode today. And sitting opposite Paul Harrison, who's looking good. Paulie, how are you?
I'm very well, cuz. Great to be here, mate. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's a nice, fine day outside. I finally got a couple of days off in a row, able to concentrate after a good night's sleep as well. So always a stressful time. How's work been? We have been under the pump with no end in sight. Seems to be getting worse. I'll be on a plane out of here soon, so I'm going to pretend I care for at least another couple of weeks.
Oh, you got some holidays coming up, man. You got some holidays coming up, so it's a good goal to work towards. You know what I'm saying?
It is. It's like I could see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel on these dark Melbourne days. You've been having a couple of big weeks at work, I understand. There's some real movement in the industry. Tell us about that.
Yeah, some big days, some big contracts coming through. A lot of clients looking for training in the worlds of leadership, communications, and selling. So it's good. It's it's nice when clients come to you and they're approaching you and asking to do business, which is cool. But it's even better when you start getting you hear back from a couple of weeks afterwards, or the attendees and the results they're getting and stuff like that, which is absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, it's good. It's exhausting, but it's no place I'd rather be, man. No place I'd rather be.
Yeah, after getting the privilege of seeing you in full flight a few weeks back, it's the amount of energy you put into your delivery and your presentations. It's huge. So I'm not surprised you're stuffed at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, you've got to do it. You have to be like that, cuz, because it's like, whilst it's not always rah, you've got to engage your audience. If you don't engage your audience, they are going to start thinking about the weekend or what they're having for dinner or what have you. And as soon as that happens, then you're not doing what you're there to do, which is to create those better outcomes, to give those breakthroughs for people. So your level of energy is crucial. There's actually been once or twice where I've thought, you know what, let me just test this a little bit, just scale back the energy a little bit. And the engagement drops off. It's quite interesting. I mean, I know a lot of people got different styles of delivery as well. And I'm sure they all have their different merits. And most importantly, they would all be appropriate for different target audiences. But personally, I've seen, pull back a little bit, and then you see sort of the engagement drop off a little bit. And it's like energy levels drop down. So I think a lot of the time they feed off your energy as well, and I think it's if you're going to get a particular outcome, you have to have people paying attention to you throughout the day and what you're saying, and asking questions and getting them to think, because as soon as they check out, then you're not going to be able to create those breakthroughs for people. But it takes it out of you. But it's a beautiful feeling, and there's no place I'd rather be than doing it.
Yeah, I've actually got a story about that that's just popped to mind. Years ago, I did my Cert 4 in building and construction, and there was a guy who did an estimating section of that. A brilliant man by the name of Alex. He had written his own estimating program based on volume, and had gone through, done his builder's license, and defended it against the board, which was quite an effort back in the day, because they wanted you to pay somewhere between 10 and 15 grand to have an estimating program, one of the actual well-designed ones, and he fought for his own. Really nice guy. When he was delivering that, because he was passionate about it and because it was what he loved, he really got into it.
Yeah.
Then the next class that came along, we did it in block lots. The next one that came along was Occ Health and Safety, which is at the best of times, right? Occ Health and Safety. Now, to frame this, you're talking to a room full of tradies and a room full of guys. It was all guys between 7 and 9:30, 3 nights a week. So we're already tired. You turn up tired. You come big day on the tools. You turn up in this room. You sit down, and the poor guy, Alex had put his hand up because the guy who was doing op health and safety couldn't present. He had an issue, couldn't do it. Alex showed up, and all he could do was read from his book. So he would sit and read this book, and he was doing his best, and nothing against him, but instantly, you got a room full of guys nodding off within minutes.
Yeah.
And because his level of energy wasn't there, his passion for it wasn't there. So it was very noticeable how, and it was hard for him to get our attention back. So, but the way we do it is perfect. Keeps everyone attention all the time. Keeps them on track.
Yeah, I really think it's important, especially when, you think about it, when clients put 15 people in a room for 2 or 3 days, that's a big cost to them. Plus they get a facilitator on, plus catering, plus hire of the room and printing and stuff like that. It's a big investment for people. So if you're just going through the motions, it's like you can't be doing that. In my opinion, anyway, as a professional trainer or facilitator, you have to do a hell of a lot more than just provide what I'm going to call information exchange. There has to be a approach to create behavioral change rather than just give people information. It's like, no, you have to be able to frame things in a way that they can use it, where they have breakthroughs. But I absolutely get it. I really do. And I think I tell you this, I think I work with people obviously who work for companies that invest in them. So the clients that I get in the room are deemed as assets by their businesses already. And I think I made reference to this at the training that we ran. But the thing is maybe, and I don't have accurate numbers on this, but what percentage of businesses actually invest in their people? Is it 10%, 20%? I don't know. But the thought process is that the people that are coming to training, they are being invested in by their businesses already. It is hopefully from a business's point of view, it's an investment rather than an expense. And what's the difference there? Well, do the clients get some degree of better outcomes? Do they? And that's why, that's why we have a lot of conversations with clients wanting to do sales training, because sales training is obviously where they can see the quickest impact of any training, because it's just on the numbers, And
it'd be quite trackable, wouldn't it? I would suggest
absolutely
that you track it quite closely.
So breakthroughs, confidence, new strategies, techniques, and understandings with the ability to go out and utilize them, it's pretty trackable. But you hope that clients see the return. Any client who invests in training broadly would see some degree of return, and then it starts becoming an investment. And here's what my belief is if somebody runs a training and they see a return on that investment, be a return on the financial investment or the time investment, they're going to keep doing it. And I really believe that's how you start cultivating that growth mindset around getting, you have a team of people, and the company invests their 10, 15, 20 grand for the day or whatever it is, and that team is trained up and they go on, they get some better outcomes. Then the employer starts seeing that as an investment rather than some degree of just, we went through the motions and invested in people. It's actually seeing that return, because then it becomes, let's do more of this training, maybe do training every 2 months or every 6 months or whatever it is. And that's where I believe the culture starts to become a culture of business where we're developing a growth mindset. And when that starts to happen, then external pressures like what we saw with COVID and stuff like that, you could see the businesses, and maybe I'm biased because I worked a lot of those businesses, I've trained a lot of them before COVID, but I could see the ones that were really proactive with the adaptation. A lot of them had cultivated that growth mindset around really, the ongoing learning. And okay, it's a new system now, we can start developing our new process around it. And people adapted to it very quickly. So, but I think it comes back down to the role of facilitators to make sure in some way, shape or form, they provide a return on that time invested or the money invested. Now, is that trackable? Is it goodwill where it's, it's just the intangible aspect? Is it team building? It could be all of those different things. But I think the more the businesses see a return on their training, then they start to see that as an investment rather than just we've paid for it, that type of mentality.
Exactly. And the fact I've spoken about a little bit, where a business is actually willing to invest in you.
Yep.
Because the skills that they give you in training, whether they're like soft skills or whether it's an like a license, truck license, boom ticket, riggers, whatever, you know, in that industry, that sort of thing, that company's actually giving you that skill for life.
Yeah.
Whether you choose to stay with that company or what, you keep that as well. So the benefit to you is huge, and it's quite I think it's quite precious to get a company that's willing to invest in you, and like you said, see you as an asset.
Yeah.
For that. Now that kind of leads me into what I want to talk about today, and this is on the back of an awesome conversation we had over breakfast this morning with our big mate Panda, who came in, and one of our biggest supporters, and love the bloke to death. He's looking good, man. Oh,
yeah, he is.
He's looking good.
Fit, looking strong.
He's looking good. Makes me feel so little when I'm next to him. It's like this just presence. And he's such a cracking bloke. So this comes off the back of a conversation we had with him today. And I wanted to talk about young people who are starting out in not so much in life, but in a couple of industries, and maybe talk about a bit of direction. We've all been there. You know, we were all young people once, and it's something that I still want to be on a daily basis, is young again, especially when it's cold and the body's old. Yeah. But I would like to talk about a couple of specific examples around salespeople, young salespeople starting out, maybe in door knocking or in they're working for charities. In shopping centers, you see them quite often, and one of my son's friends was doing it for a while. So we'll talk about that, a little bit of advice on what kind of skills they should look for, and what we think as older people, that people with a bit more experience, I should say, we'd given them knowledge around that. So we all remember. I think I remember my first time at assembly at school. We're all sitting there, and they get someone to come, and they get some older person who's probably only in their 20s at the time, and you're like 15 years old, you know everything. You're sitting there, and this guy's standing up in front of class, and he's talking to you all, and these are the best days of your life, people, and enjoy it. This is the easiest time you're ever going to have, and you're just thinking, oh, whatever, mate, come on. You're looking at
this guy. I know I get my lunch money picked from me every day.
I can see the rugby field out there. Like, what are you talking about? The sun's shining. I don't want to be any listening. What would this old bloke? And he was right. That's the burning part. He was right.
You reckon school days are the best days of your life?
They were the cruisiest days. I didn't have much to worry about back then.
Yeah.
Wasn't a lot of responsibility. You used to get picked up by the bus. You used to get told to get out of bed. You used to get told where to be. Get lunches, get to go home. You know, if you paid attention, you learned something. It was pretty cracking time. Then you start to struggle, because then you leave and you go to university, or maybe you go to university, or you choose to, enter the workforce, or whatever you choose to do, trouble. But once you leave school, there's no one telling you where you have to be, what you have to do, and how to do it, and what you're supposed to do, and what you're supposed to choose at uni to study for 4 years and then do as a career. That's pretty difficult. It wasn't something I could do. And I know a lot of people who struggled, they've gone and got their degrees and then are not interested in all in the field. You know, how common is that? So I think that's a very hard thing to do for a young person at 18, what you want to be for the rest of your life. So
at the age of 18 to be able to make that decision.
Come on. So things like that. So if I throw it to you and say, there's a person who's come to you for, in whatever situation, and has said, hey, Paulie, I'm just starting out in sales. And I'm, for instance, I'm door knocking, or I'm, working at, I'm working for, say, Australian Surf Lifesaving, at one of their kiosks they have in the shopping centres.
Yeah.
And I'm quite liking sales. I'm quite enjoying it. What do you think I should do? So what would be some advice you give to these younger people?
Wow. Okay. So somebody who's just moved into some degree of selling, they're enjoying it. They may be getting people to sign up to subscriptions now, and they've got a view to potentially a career in selling. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, something along those lines. And they're a bit interested. They want to talk to someone like you, see what they can do, see where this can lead them. Is this the right kind of thing for me?
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Listen, I think first and foremost, I really believe when it comes to business, and again, maybe I'm biased because I do teach this type of stuff, but I think that the ability to sell is an absolute skill set. And when I say sell, again, there are still people have got a very negative perception of selling because they've maybe had a bad experience with somebody that they think sort of manipulated them or what have you. And that's one of the approaches I take with my salespeople is getting them to think differently about seeing themselves as salespeople or business development execs. They're not salespeople; they're world-class problem solvers. Because if you can see that, it's an absolute game changer. So, how much I bang on about this, and everybody else listening to this, your ears may well be bleeding when I'm talking about this type of stuff. But firstly, I have to do this. I absolutely have to do this. Is I have to get my salespeople, my world-class problem solvers, to see the value that they bring to the table. Once we have that, once they start to realize that the common knowledge that they have as a part of their job, what they do on a day-to-day basis, that common knowledge could be an absolute revelation to their target audience. That's my foundation. Everything else I can build from that. Absolutely everything else I can build from that. But being able to build that in a way that keeps somebody in a positive empowerment and emotional state, they don't get overwhelmed, they don't lose those mental battles that salespeople can very often face, particularly when you're not dealing with, when you haven't worked that stuff out yet in your head with regards to your positioning, how you approach these things. So that's the first thing I have to do. If I was to take on somebody to mentor them and coach them, first thing I have to get them to do is understand the value that they bring. Without that, we've got a real rough go of it. And if I'm working with them, they would have to be able to answer the question, why would somebody buy from me? And when I say, why would somebody buy from you? I don't mean that is a condescending question with there's no answer at the end. It's tell me, people have bought from you before. Why have they bought from you before? And as soon as somebody can start unpacking that and genuinely unpacking it, then they start to get these beautiful little insights with regards to, okay, that person's bought from me in the past. What was it about our interaction that ensured that they wanted to buy from me? And it blows my mind that even people I'm training now with 20 years worth of experience, 25 years, 30 years of experience, they can't answer that question straight up. And very often it's not they're not giving me an answer that is anything more than a transactional situation. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if I've got this widget, a client comes to me and buys the widget. Why? Because the buyer's demand, the buyer wants the widget. Okay. I have the widget, the client wants to buy the widget, I'll sell them the widget. That's the thought process around selling. And that happens. I get it. And that's how a lot of people would see it. I hold the stock and the buyer's going to come buy from me. Okay. That's fine when you've got no competition. But when you've got competition and you've got your widget and then you've got your competitor's widget is 5% cheaper on a volume that's big, why would somebody come and buy from you now? If you can't answer that question, we've got a rough go of it. Now, that's the first thing, is getting people to see the value that they bring. Secondly, I have to make sure that people have a real idea with regards to their credibility to stand in front of somebody. Now, here's what I see a hell of a lot of. I very often see salespeople coming in and they will be young in the game. And, there's some clients I work with that sell very high end, what I might call aspirational vehicles. Okay. So they sell, without giving too many names away or anything like that, people who are selling, big ticket items, which is very much sort of targeted at the high net worth individuals. And therefore, your clients who come in and buy are people with money. And very often, people with money, they might be very direct. They haven't made money by being an idiot or anything like that. And very often, my salespeople can say, buyers are not going to buy from me because I am young. Now, this is a real challenge, because it can very often feel like that. But here's the thing. This is why I come back to, there are people who are young that we will all sit down and listen to. Okay. You and I walked into a presentation on something. We've got somebody who's 19 years old, 20 years old, comes out and talks about something we know nothing about, but this person absolutely knows what they're talking about. They see the value they're bringing. They're talking about to us about something that we don't know about. Okay. Or maybe we've got some preconceived ideas, but this person's level of certainty when they come out and talk to us, and when I say certainty, it's credibility. They project that sense of credibility. Then effectively, we're going to be in a position to take this person seriously. We're going to listen to what they say, and they're going to hold that space. Okay, but here's the kicker. This is the real trap I would not want anybody falling into. Them saying, and I've been through this as well. I've done that door knocking, and I've tried to sell complex things to people who are senior level decision makers. And firstly, I'm intimidated out of my mind by these people. But secondly, it's like I'm thinking, who the hell am I to say this to this person who's got 25 years in the industry? But the fact of the matter is, as soon as I can get this person, the salesperson, this 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, I've had clients say this 30, 35, saying once they see how they know more than what this person does, then they start projecting a sense of certainty. But here's the thing. It comes down to how the individual feels about the value they can bring. If Mark Zuckerberg started talking about technology back in 2007, 2008, I'm guessing, I don't even know when Facebook came out, but I'm guessing his sense of certainty would have ensured that we would have listened. How do I probably know that? Well, I don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing that he might have had to get some funding from somewhere out there. And I mean, the .com, a lot of those young up-and-coming tech entrepreneurs would have been very young, but they would have had a high degree of certainty around what they were saying. Now, obviously, we know what happened with the .com bubble and all of that, but make no bones about it, there was people who were communicating with a high sense of certainty, and you had senior-level decision-makers at venture capital firms or, what have you, funders who were going to give them money. So the individuals, the young individuals, if they see the value that they bring and they can cultivate that sense of certainty, then very often they're going to speak from that sense of certainty and authority, and they're going to project that. And that's what's so important. That's what's absolutely so crucial, is when you have that sense of certainty around what you're talking about, and that you can genuinely answer that question, why would somebody buy from me? Or why has somebody bought from me before? What are the commonalities I can see in the person that I've sold to before and prospective clients in the future? If I can think about that and I can see those commonalities, then I can start looking for more people that are going to buy from me. Okay. And that is what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Because as soon as I get caught in that trap of people won't listen to me because I'm too young, then I'm dead in the water. Or people won't listen to me because I'm X, Y, Z, whatever it is. South African. Okay, they won't listen to me.
Yeah.
when I'm trying to sell fitness gear to AFL, to Australian football teams, Aussie football AFL teams here, they're not going to listen because I'm South African and I didn't grow up with AFL, but as soon as I tell myself that story, then I've lost the game.
Yeah.
Then I might as well go and sell something else. Yeah. But it's really getting people to see that value that they bring. That's the first thing. And then being able to create that growth mindset around why people would buy from you. Because if you can do that, then sell it, and you take on that mantle of becoming a world-class problem solver. People have got problems. Problems often that keep them up at night. Maybe even problems they're not aware of, but their life could be better if you could help them with this. Okay. But being able to then identify that, speak to that, then you start being able to help people have these massive breakthroughs. And let me tell you, there is no better, in my opinion anyway, no better way to connect with somebody than be able to help with a problem that they're currently dealing with. And that's when I think selling becomes such a beautiful skill set to take on. So that would be my first aspect, being able to answer that, seeing what I refer to as your own professional self-esteem, the value you bring, the solution to problems that people have. That would be where I would start. Next thing I'm looking for is I want to make professional development part of my life.
Yeah.
So since
I know when you talked to me about this around salespeople, when you first,
absolutely
we first started this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think I only discovered professional and personal development at the age of 30. Okay, which was about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, you're looking good.
But at that time, I was selling big contracts. I was selling big ticket items. But here was the thing: I hadn't even stumbled onto professional development at that point, not once. So it's like, I think that if you want selling to be easier, you have to take on these professional and personal development aspects, particularly developing aspects like that growth mindset we've all spoken so much about. being able to influence and persuade, being able to actively listen, because I don't think active listening is part of human psychology. I think there's a hard wiring that goes against that, particularly when any degree of negative emotion gets involved in a conversation. I've said this before.
Yeah.
But developing those skill sets, those soft skills, or what somebody referred to as human skills the other day, those interpersonal communication skills, ongoing professional development, I think is absolutely crucial. And then finally, what I would say to them is find a sector and a niche that you are genuinely interested in, one that you can find where you're associating with a type of people that you get on with, people that you've got things in common with, things that people that you have maybe a mutual interest in, because again, if you fall in love with the process, you're going to get world-class outcomes,
Yep.
And
Totally.
if you can associate with people you enjoy associating with, you have mutual interests or certain values or beliefs or around certain things, that's cool. That's absolutely fantastic. And then also look at places that are going to be able to reward good selling skills.
Yes.
Because if you're taking the time, and I tell you, taking the time, once you fall into that deep love of professional development or personal development, your own informal, ongoing professional or personal development, and your skill sets get better and better and better, find something you enjoy selling and find something that rewards you well for use of those skills. Because if you've worked for those skills, you have that earned advantage in your marketplace. And that's what we're looking to do, taking those skills that you've developed, selling in an environment you enjoy with people that you like, things that you're interested in, and then making sure that you are going to be remunerated for your work. And when I say remunerated, I'm talking about the big ticket stuff, stuff with good margins on, so that you can get remunerated fairly for the hard work you're putting in. If I do no work, if I don't work on my skill sets as a salesperson, and I just go out and sell something just transactionally, and there's no margin on it because the competition is so high, then I can't really be upset. But if I put in that work, I'm thinking, you know what? I put in an hour of study every single week or every single day towards my selling skills. Then I'm looking for places, and I find this a lot in competitive marketplaces. A lot of sales leaders that come and ask me about, do you know people who have got these good skill sets, and they're willing to give good commissions, great commissions. And that's where I want people to get that return, because if you put in the work, then you deserve the remuneration as well, particularly in a world that can be very cutthroat, which is selling. It really, really can. So, Cuz, that's probably a long answer to a short question, my brother.
That's all right. A little bit to unpack there. A little bit. No, there's some good advice there. Some really good advice. Anyone out there listening? Now, the first thing is, especially when you're talking about young people, and I think we've all, as older people, as my wife says, it's a privilege to be old. Not a lot of people can get this far.
Yeah.
So as an older person, sometimes you go, and it's hard to accept advice from younger people, because you're thinking, who are you to tell me this? But I'll unpack it like this. When you're talking to someone, you're a really good communicator with someone, you can not so much push buttons, but all of a sudden you open someone up about something that they're really passionate about.
Yeah.
Their whole body changes.
Yeah.
Because they know all about it. They are literally, that's their passion. That's what they love to do. And they become a different person. They open up, they answer your questions, their eyes light up, their body language says, I'm really going. That's what I think you're talking about. As a world-class problem solver and a subject matter expert, that's the kind of thing you want to project. Doesn't matter your age. If you've got everything aligned, what you're saying, tone of voice, body language, the words you're delivering, all that's on point, and you're delivering it as good as you can, that person's going to believe you. If they don't believe you, then it'll be their problem, not yours. You give them all the information that you can. So turning that switch, when you see people, if I'm talking to you about, I don't know, ballet or something, and the lights are going to go off, it's similar to what we talked about with my old mate doing the health and safety thing. You switched off. But then all of a sudden, if I talk to him about estimating, he's going to come alive.
Yeah.
And it'll all come out because he's expert on that matter. So that's kind of what you're looking for when Paulie's talking about becoming a subject matter expert and making sure you deliver well is making sure you get everything going in the right direction on that. So that way, answer all the client's questions. What do you say? Price is only an issue in the absence of value.
No, that's incomplete. That's what that's what my competitors say, mate.
Value to them, benefits to.
There's a word I use instead of just value. What is it? Listen, I think that's true, but I think it's incomplete. And in an industry where you only need to be a fraction better than the alternative to get the deal done, let my competitors say price is only an issue in the absence of value. What I say, price is only an issue in the absence of perceived value, because people, different decision makers, are going to perceive value in different ways.
Yeah.
And if we're going to meet our target audience at their view of the world, you better believe we're going to portray that value in a way that resonates with the target audience.
I'm getting closer, Paulie. I'm getting closer.
Every day's a school day,
all the time. So I'm getting closer, everyone. I'm trying. But starting out as a younger person is hard. Now, the other thing that I want to unpack with you is the whole professional development thing, especially in the sales world. Now, this blew my mind. I did not realize that you didn't need formal qualifications to be in sales. I thought there was at least some kind of hurdle, qualification, basic startup that you had to go to get into certain jobs in sales. You started me on the whole learning growth mindset, reading some books around sales and negotiation and some leadership stuff, and it's gone from there. I think I'd read, it was about 80 hours, maybe less. It was somewhere between 8 and 10 books. And I asked you for the next recommendation, and you said there isn't one. I said, why not? And you said, well, you've read everything that I'd recommend as to get as a starter as a salesperson. But secondly, on the numbers, I had absorbed just in audio books alone, and some seminars and whatnot that I'd learned as well, watched as well, that I was in like the top 10% of salespeople and in terms of professional development. Which blew my mind. Like I couldn't, I still can't quite get my head around that people wouldn't want to further their skills as much as they could and become as curious as possible and make sure that, got this ongoing thing. Now that I've kickstarted this growth mindset, I'm curious about everything, which is annoying sometimes because I go down rabbit holes when I should be focusing on other stuff, but the curiosity gets me. What happens if I do this, and what's the result I get from that? So the professional development one's huge. The growth mindset, that learning aspect, like you said, once there's some skills, there's some, like you say, soft skills or human skills, conversation skills that some people just have naturally. And don't realize that they're doing it. They don't realize there's certain, which is all teachable, it's all teachable stuff. They don't realize they're doing it. And once you shine a light on it and all of a sudden you realize, oh, do I do that? Then you can start seeing the results of when you do that. Like you purposely use it and you see the result and you're like, wow, what's next? Then you add to that and you can see what works, what doesn't, what works for you.
Absolutely.
Just because me and you talk about it doesn't mean this is the way to do it.
If
it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Everyone's different. But that really gets me going as well. That being curious and making sure that you can start stacking these skills on top of each other. Some you may have naturally. Everything's teachable. Everything's teachable around sales. So those are the things that I think you touching on them are really important. Selling's everything, no matter where you go.
There's a couple of things there, cuz firstly, again, I think that's one of the reasons I said it's like there's nothing more, there's no more books for you to learn. It's probably what I said, but it's probably not that accurate. And the reason that I said that, the reason that I said that was one thing I'm terrified of. There's a lot of things I'm terrified of, but what I don't want people falling into is the trap of just ongoing professional development without any implementation of it. So there's like, and I know we've used this term before, but people go to these personal development seminars and they go there and they get all G'd up, and it can be an engaging place, and they become what we refer to as seminar junkies, or what they call in the industry seminar junkies, because you go there, you have a heightened emotional experience with a group of other people who have shared interests, and it's everybody's looking for some sense of connection, some sense of meaning. It certainly applies that. But I'm very aware of people getting that cathartic effect from knocking down books, and then they've got all this theoretical stuff that they're not putting into practice. And that's a rough place to be, because I mean, there's I'm just thinking back to people now. I mean, there were some people certainly when I was coming up and when I was new to Australia, very new to Australia, and certainly in the UK, people would have all these great quotes from all these books, but they're not applying anything. And it's like they've just got the books and they've done the same thing for X amount of time. And listen, I know it's like you've got to go out and apply it. And that was just that's a concern I often have. It's like people talk about they've read 50 books last year, and that's awesome. But it's like, that's cool. That's absolutely fantastic. But what I want you to be able to apply that information, because it's so easy to just say, oh, I should go out and start that new business, or I should apply for that new job because I read a book about it. It's like, oh, well, maybe I just need to get a little bit more information. It's just like, get out and do it, because for all the theory you learn, that's awesome. But it's how do you apply this? That's the difference. That's what gets you those better outcomes. And again, that's why, come back to what you were saying a little bit earlier, there's people who got those natural interpersonal communication skills. And I think everybody's got some skills, but very often everything I teach has to be practical. It has to be implementable. You have to be able to implement it as well. And it has to be stuff I already use. Okay. But the reason I take that type of approach where it's practical and it's applicable is because then people can use it with a degree of intention. So there's a model around persuasion and influence. Because I'll ask people, how do you do it? How do you currently influence and persuade? And they'll look at me with a mouthful of teeth, and they won't be able to give me a systematic approach. But then you go and influence, and it's just one example, but being able to then see that and work out that approach and actually physically apply it in every conversation, then you start doing it intentionally. Whereas previously, if you did it 1 in 10 times and you got one good outcome, 1 in 10 conversations, you got one good outcome. It's like you're now applying it in every situation, and maybe it doesn't work perfectly in every situation, but maybe getting 8 out of 10 instead of 1 out of 10. So I think that's very important with regards to going out and actually applying what you're learning, because there is a difference between theory and application. It absolutely is. And that's really, if our North Star is making sure the clients get better outcomes, that's that they have to go away and apply the stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I've heard it said that's like paralysis by analysis. You can sit there and study everything you want, and I'm a poster child for this, because I need to be hands-on with something. Most of my learning is hands-on experience. I can sit and watch videos and books and stuff about it, which is good to a certain extent. It gives you a good foundation of what you should be aiming at and what you should be doing.
Yeah.
But, especially with soft skills, what we'll call them, you need to be able to learn how to put them in, insert them into various situations, realize that you're in that situation first of all of a sudden. Use them in a negotiation here. What do I have to do to try and stay calm? You got to, so you don't freak out, don't get too nervous, lose all that cognitive ability, and can't answer a question, can't remember your name.
So like deer in the headlights type of situation.
Being able to apply these are different. So in the building industry, if you're getting upskilled, you might go and get a boom ticket, knuckle boom ticket, or a scissor lift ticket. You can come back and apply those skills straight away. Say to your employer, hey, you can drive that now. And away you go. Yeah, there may be some teething problems. You may not be the smoothest operator. You may get stuck a little bit, but after a while you get the ropes and off you go. But, truck ticket, same kind of thing, licenses.
Yes.
It's all like muscle memory. So it's that, I guess those are, maybe we'll refer to them as the harder skills, or I don't know how to put that into context, but with the softer skills, I think the hardest part is not only learning them and taking them on board, but then finding the situations to actually insert them and start using them and see the reactions that you get. Because some of it's terrifying. That's
a phenomenal point, cuz. It's a very phenomenal. What would you say about this? if you go and do your boom ticket or you know your heavy truck ticket or what have you, you've got a definable set of things in your environment. So you put the clutch in, you change gear, you let the clutch out, you accelerate. It's a step-by-step process that you would, and it's a environment that is quite process driven. Would that be fair to say to get your tickets?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yep. Controlled set of circumstances, that kind of thing. Yep.
Absolutely. So it's like you go away, you do your practical, what have you, you prove that you can do it, and then there's not a huge difference between doing it for your ticket to actually pass and then going out and actually doing it live. Would that be a fair comment?
Exactly. Like driving a car, like learning to drive a car. Similar.
Beautiful. And then if we're looking at how do we compare that to the soft skills or the human skills, interpersonal skills, here's the thing. Very often, and I actually heard this from a client a couple of weeks ago. She said to me that she'd been to training, and you know the whole message was just be a better leader. And yeah, that's the outcome, but how do you actually do it? Yeah. How do you become a better leader? And it's like saying to somebody, and I know I rant on about this, but it's like saying to somebody who's not confident, just be more confident.
Yeah.
It's like I can teach you how to change gears in a car or in a truck or something like that. But how do you be more? Because it's the largely intangibles. And I think that's really why it comes back to the onus on us as facilitators to take an outcome that people are after, be that, let's say, confidence, break down all the components of confidence, and then be able to teach how to develop all of those different components, which ultimately makes you more confident. So if you can make it tangible and a step-by-step process to develop confidence, then you can help somebody get that confident outcome. It's definable steps.
Yep.
And I think that's a phenomenal observation there, mate. It's a great parallel that you've just drawn between the two, or maybe conflicting that you just change between the two, because interpersonal soft skills are very often intangible. It's like, what makes somebody charismatic? Oh, I don't know. Or let's say what makes somebody approachable. It's not if you said to me, Paul, so and so was very, very approachable. It's like, well, what makes you? Why do you say that? Why would you put that label on them? And you might go around, you might say, you know what? I don't know. It's just the way that they made me feel. It's like, well, that doesn't really help me to be able to reverse engineer it, to be able to,
to be able to teach it. Correct. It's very hard.
I got to tell you this now, cousin. We might get off track a little bit.
It's not like us, people. Stay with us. We'll be back on track shortly.
I'm talking about farmers and stuff like that. You know, no get rich quick schemes and things. I got to tell you this. There was a training I did probably about 6 months ago, and I got asked the greatest question I think I've ever been asked on any of these training workshops. And it had pre-framed it. The context before that was, I'd said to clients that just a passing comment to set some context was that what I'm always looking for is those best outcomes for clients. And what that means is I've got to find people who are already getting world-class outcomes in the things they're doing. So seeing leaders who are getting great leadership results, seeing salespeople who are getting great leadership results. So I'm looking for the outcomes they're getting first. Then I'm identifying the person. Then I'm trying to break down what each of those people are doing to achieve that outcome. You with me so far?
Absolutely.
Then from there, I need to be able to codify exactly what they're doing. So what are the actions this person's taking to get those outcomes? Then I have to be able to codify it. By codify, put a structure around it. I hope that's the right context to codify. It's what I'm using. And then being able to actually teach it. Because if I can teach a codified approach, that's going to speed up the learning curve massively for people. So it doesn't take 35 years for somebody to achieve a high degree of professional self-esteem if we can speed the process up with something like the 5 at 5. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Tiff was one of the clients there, and she said to me, Paul, you made that comment, and I think it was day 2 or day 3 into the training. And she said to me, how do you actually do that? And here was the thing. I sat there and I thought, and I looked at it and I thought, I can't tell you exactly. He goes, how do you codify it? And I thought, I don't actually know. And and then I thought about it afterwards and I had to reflect on it. And, when we're teaching critical thinking and problem solving, we talk about looking at a problem or looking at a situation from a multitude of different angles, diversity of thought process, all of these different aspects, how you use these different frameworks, 5 whys, you're using fishbone diagrams, mind mapping, all of this stuff. But I couldn't give her a step-by-step definable thing as to exactly how I codify it. The only thing I could say is thinking about that same problem or noticing those outcomes, seeing what people are doing, okay, then how do you codify it? And then being able to look across different industries, across different contexts to see what other people are doing. And I think that's when you're looking at a particular problem, you're seeing everything through the context of that. And then you see somebody just says something, it's like, oh, damn, that's exactly what happened there. It was like you talk about discovery versus disclosure, the power of asking questions. And that came, I think, from a video I was watching on relationship development. It's like, getting your partner to discover how much you love them or what have you. It's much more powerful than you just saying it. And the individual that was being interviewed said just discovery over disclosure. It's like, damn, that works with persuasion and influence as well. It's like, It just came in there. But it was a difficult question. And I still don't think I've got an answer to it. But it was hearing that, it's looking at the outcome, looking at what they're doing, then trying to figure out and codify exactly how it is. Because again, the contexts are going to shift all the time. I don't know if I'm making any sense on this, but it's like, but it was such a brilliant question, and it was one that I was saying, and I said to her, I don't think I have an accurate answer for you, but I'm going to give it a go. I said, drawing it out and writing it out and sort of doing a mind map of it and how it all, so you're using different contexts, your brain and stuff like that. But Tiff, if you're listening to that, this still the best question I've been asked as far as as training I've dealt with. And I'm still looking on an answer. I'm still looking for an answer for you.
What you're talking about is so true. Like, you got someone who wants to learn how to be confident. Yeah. And you can, like you said, you can break that down, teach them, they can still not feel confident. When I started at Toastmasters, it's like presenting. Yeah. Another skill we need to talk about with salespeople, up and coming salespeople, I think would be very good for them, is learning how to present, learning how to speak in public and to get up in front of people. When I first started there, I was out of my depth. I just get up there and the brain wouldn't work, and just when you need it the most, the brain disappears down the road, and you're standing up there and you're babbling through something and talking, and you sit back down, you think, oh, what, I've hashed that. And next year, like, is this your first time? Like, wow, you did really well.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, really? I was a mess inside. And then they say that to you a few times. You think, okay, maybe there's something here. And it's, like, I don't feel confident, but I portray being confident. I've got all the skills there, and maybe that's where young people can struggle too, because it's the experience of getting into these situations and the experience of maybe they're a bit overwhelmed and don't want to say a certain thing, and like mirroring, for example, mirroring or asking certain questions of people, it feels so wrong. The first time you try to mirror someone, which is a technique, for those of you who haven't come across this, technique from Chris Voss's book, which is Never Split the Difference. He's an FBI negotiator, and mirroring is one of the like conversation tactics that he uses to get people to open up. The first couple of times you use it, you think the person sitting opposite you is going, just don't do that to me, don't mirror me. What's wrong with you? But it's like a superpower. It just having the courage to put that into place. That's got to be the same with everything else. You get your license, you learn how to drive a car, takes you a couple of weeks, you're not too bad. People look at you and go, oh, what's going on? Oh, they're only a peak loader, they're only just learning how to drive, we'll cut them a bit of slack. That doesn't happen in the business world. It doesn't happen in the sales world, If you're new, you don't know what you're talking about, you're shivering and shaking, no one's going to take you seriously. So learning to get these skills in. And the other thing is, if you're learning, say you're learning negotiation skills, you may end up in a negotiation before you realize it. It may not be an actual set, structured time and date.
Yeah.
You go and sit down with someone.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you might be on site. You might be a leading hand or a site manager, and you've got one of your contractors coming up to you, and all of a sudden, bang, you're in the middle of it. And you don't realize that you're in the middle of it. So you've got to, shoot from the hip, so to speak, and make mistakes, learn from them, move on. So implementing these skills is a difficult part as well, I think.
Absolutely. That time in the arena, because it's like you can do the learning and stuff like that. And hopefully if people attend good training, they have breakthroughs where they start feeling more confident and they can see exactly how they can apply everything. But you're quite right, that there's no substitute for time in the arena. You're out there in the arena, you're doing what you're doing. The crowd is cheering and applauding, hopefully. Hopefully, and you're dealing with real life scenarios. You're quite right.
Well, how's this? Maybe they're not cheering. Maybe they're not cheering. Maybe there's the other thing you got to bounce off against as well. Maybe you're knocking on the door. We won't talk about what we talked about earlier at breakfast, some of the results you got knocking on the doors, but maybe you're knocking on the door and you're getting hard rejections.
Yeah.
Flat out in your face, told to get on your bike, no uncertain terms, maybe a couple of words short, really kindly specials.
Yeah.
You've got to also learn to deal with that, because that's a skill in itself as well, dealing with rejection. Trying to remember, here's the best piece of advice I can give you if you're a salesperson and you come up against a hard rejection. It's not personal to you. It's really not. It's against what you're selling. If it's personal against you, well, then that's their problem, not yours. But dealing with that and just, wiping it off, going on, is something that you're going to need to get used to, yeah? Did you have problems when you first came up against those kind of rejections, Paulie? Or
massively, absolutely massively, because I took everything very personally.
Oh yeah, man, you have to.
It's like if somebody says no, listen. This is one of the reasons I push that professional self-esteem so hard, because only when you see the value that you bring, you don't need external validation, or you need it less. Now, of course, we all want validation externally. Of course, I think it's part of being human. But no, I mean, I took everything personal. Absolutely everything personal. It's like, I really did. I mean, I'm not even joking, but I think rejection is, even with all the experience of being an ugly teenager, taking rejection, it was still something difficult. But only when I started to see that maybe I do have something of value to add, then the no's became, they had no impact. Well, it had less impact.
Yeah.
It's because again, your whole mindset shifts when you know that you bring value. And I'm not just saying these words so people logically understand it, because logically every single person in a role should understand that they bring some degree of value, but it's actually emotionally taking ownership of this. And it's like, because you can say to somebody, oh, you look absolutely fantastic, or you did a good job, but it's how you feel about it that dictates your next actions. If you know you're not in good shape and somebody tries to give you a nice compliment, you start questioning that. If you know that you didn't do well in that last interaction, and somebody says, "Oh, you don't worry about it," it's like, no, I take this personally. I do. But here's the other thing. Again, maybe that fault is with me, because I do have a deep love for business. I do, and I think it's not an issue now, but it certainly was an issue. I would say into my late 20s, it was an issue. After sort of start heading to 30, then I started to see, because I started to get headhunted in the roles I was in. And once you're getting headhunted, you're starting to think, okay, and this is in a very small environment, but significant money there. And that's when I started thinking, these folks who are coming after me and making these offers, they're not idiots, firstly. And I've taken business off them before. and they must see some value I see in what and I started to love the process. I loved the process of the work I was doing. I started to realize I could broker better deals than other people could, and I sold myself on that belief, and it was but it took me bloody forever. And then it's like, and then you start getting to the situation where you start realizing, okay, I'm going to get a no off some people because not everybody is going to be an ideal client for me. And there's going to be competitors out there who are going to be better than me to serve this client. And that's okay. But I had to really take an emotional understanding of that, not just a logical one. Because again, you're hot out the blocks, you're going into selling, you sell, let's make that commission. And I think that's where a lot of challenges come in. But when you are okay with yourself in that situation, then that no becomes, that's perfect. We're just not a good fit. That's fine.
Yeah, that person is not in the right, and it's not that right time in the person's life for them to
Absolutely.
say yes, or there's extenuating circumstances or factors or whatnot.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
100%.
Saves your time as well. Out the door. Let's go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it's, but again, it's so easy to say it's nothing personal, but geez, it feels personal.
Oh,
especially when you put a lot of pressure, and that's the vast majority of your life. If 80% of your life is business and business is going rubbish, then life becomes pretty rough. You know what I'm saying? There was actually a book I read, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. This is going back a fair few years now. But the author there wrote about Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And she wrote about having balance in your life. And she was so on point there. But effectively, it was you should have 5 areas. So health, career, wealth creation, relationships, and family. Those 5 areas. And it should be 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20% to have a balanced life. I was sitting at the time I read that at like 80% in one area and 20% amongst everything else. And it was rough because you go to work, you have a rough day. It feels like the world's coming down on you. Because that's 80, but you don't have that balance in that life. And I think when you're going well, and that 80% of your life is going well, and it feels great to be alive. When it's not, then it's like, wow, I need to go and do something else, But
we all get to those times in our life too when you need to have that 80% focus on one certain area. It doesn't have to be just on work, pick any of those 5. And there's times in your life where the other 4 aren't going to matter. You've got to pick on one thing.
Yeah.
That becomes consuming. So like you said, of everything that you're doing, especially as a young up and comer, trying to make things work and get everything dialed in, you have your bad days. Oh, it's hard to brush off, man.
Absolutely. Because now, listen, somebody listening to this, and he's interested in he or she's interested in getting into the trades, and considering doing some tickets. What guidance would you give to somebody in that situation?
Well, don't stop learning would be where I'd start. I made that mistake. I learned as a carpenter and then learned it. Got to a point in my career where I decided I knew everything as a carpenter. I pretty much topped out. There was a few new things and different products and methods coming in, but I thought I knew everything. And I just concentrated on being a carpenter. My brain decided I wasn't going to be anything else. That's what it'll always be. So probably don't do what I did. If you love carpentry and you want to be all about it, make sure you start to get, which is good, start to get other things going on around the side of it as well. Other options, other career paths, get a more rounded view. I would start with, as I always say, all the guys I speak to, all the young guys who ask me this question, start getting yourself tickets, start learning, start giving yourself options, which is, again, lets you sell yourself more.
Yeah.
More options. The first one's usually hard. You'd probably go for something like, I don't know, maybe a forklift license or an EWP ticket. EWP is Elevated Work Platform, which is anything from a scissor lift to the big knuckle booms that we use on site. Now, the difficult part about this is if you're a young up-and-comer, it's hard to sell yourself to your boss to do like what you said. It's a big investment from any boss to get you not only time off work from what you should be doing, but invest in you into a skill. So you might have to do it off your own back. You may be lucky enough to get some funding for it.
Yeah.
That becomes tax deductible. in terms of, well, it's not right off the ball, but it's tax deductible. And then what I always try and tell blokes is the next year, use some of your tax return, all of your tax return, what it is to invest in yourself. You do that for 5 or 6 years, you'll have a lot of tickets. And when it comes to, it'll start opening up doors. It'll give you options. It'll give you all sorts of different options on where to go, which is always a comfort. Yeah. If we've talked about it, you're under the most stress in your life when you've got no options, when you're sat there, stuck in that horrible place. If you've given yourself options and you're in a hard spot, you know that you can just pick up the phone and, maybe have a scroll through Seek, whatever. You've got options there. The construction industry is massive, and the contacts you can make and the directions you can go. Don't just be set on one little thing. Keep your mind open as much as you can. That's what I'd tell them. Start with that.
Absolutely.
And, spread yourself around a bit. Spread yourself around a little bit. As a carpenter, I was blessed because we did everything as an apprentice. And when I first came out of my time, we did everything start to finish on a job. Absolutely everything. So I got exposure to everything carpentry start to finish. Some guys maybe start off as framing carpenters, and all they know is framing. I'd suggest when you come out of your time, if you've only ever done frames, maybe go and do some lock up and fix, or hang some doors, or maybe go into a big job in the city, do some form work, get a more rounded view, because you might find something that you just fall in love with.
Yeah.
We did shops and all sorts of shop fitting and plastering, and guys would call us crazy. Why are you guys doing that? You're only carpenters. Wow. If that's the way you see us, we just see ourselves as builders. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So that's the advice I'd give. I always give that kind of advice.
Yeah, I think you folks in the trades, you do have that job satisfaction as well of actually seeing what you've built. It's something tangible. It's something large. It's a mutual friend of ours. He once said to me, the job satisfaction he gets, and he's a plumber by trade. He'd say, you walk away from this piece of work you've done, and it's like, yeah, I did that, and it's like I can move. I can help a family now get running water or something like that. It's like, that's pretty cool. It's good stuff. That,
and when we've done that for a long time, that's, I think, where me personally making the shift from that, which I'd call, I don't know if I'm being right here, or if you can come after me if you want, I'd refer to that as hard skills, right? I love the construction industry. You can stand back being a carpenter, you can look at what you built and be proud of it, and think, geez, I better pull my finger out tomorrow because I haven't done hardly anything. It doesn't look like I've done a lot here. Moving from that to what you've termed as the soft skills, and applying them and trying to see where they work and how I can add value, and then try and put a price tag on that value, is very hard when it's not tangible for me. I can't see it, and I can't, being a visual, my whole life, it's hard for me to see that. So that was one area that I struggled in, and it took me a while to get my head around that.
Yeah.
And like you said, the value that I bring to the table and all that, once you shine a spotlight on that, and I'm starting to, okay. So that's one area that I struggled in. So maybe I'll throw in there as well to tradies is have a listen to what Paulie's saying, have a think about the things that he talks about, because as a tradie, selling and marketing is always huge, as it is in most entrepreneurial. But oh no, we've got balloons. What have I done?
I don't know who's been messing with your computer, but keep going.
Oh, it's a setting. I just want to draw attention to myself. I love the balloons. Selling and marketing, always big. Always big. Any business, needs selling and marketing. So some of these skills that Paul always talks about, and that I've learned recently, is they can be mammoth to your career. So don't shy away from them. Try and get them.
I think any skill sets can bring people closer together, I think, are absolutely they've been an obsession of mine over the last few years. We got two digits on those years, but I think anything that can bring that, people together like that, I think are absolutely phenomenal. But you're right. I mean, they are considered, I think, soft skills, but they're difficult to learn because they're largely intangible. If you've got a step-by-step process you can follow, then it makes it easier to take on. If I just say be a good communicator, it's like, okay, well, what are the steps to becoming a good communicator? Which is, I think, Kaz, I think you've uncovered something here with regards to really being able to make all of these human skills or soft skills sequence based. Because if you can make them sequence based, you can teach them. And I think that's certainly absolutely crucial here. Which is something that we do our best to do, and we provide that structure, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. Now, tell me, is there anything that we've talked about today that you couldn't teach me now as an old person? It's pretty much all the same stuff. If you ever think about everything, I've just thought about everything we've talking about today. If you're changing jobs or you're changing careers or whatever, everything is teachable.
It's my brother, as long as people have got an open mindset to learn, and that's our responsibilities as facilitators as well, to open people up. But if somebody's got the capacity to learn and desire to learn, then in my opinion, everything else is teachable. But again, maybe we're biased because we work in this industry, maybe. And that's what people defending their position would say, well, that's easy for you to say or what have you. But I really believe when you see people, if you want to look for inspiration, look at people who've made 180-degree shifts in their lives. They've gone from one very, very, down a very bad path and shifted around, or even people who have reinvented themselves. Arnold Schwarzenegger, listening to his audiobook the other day. And I mean, he went from like a small town to then being, a bodybuilder. Then he went to become a movie star. Then he went to become a politician. And I mean, you can say what you want about those 3 different steps. And now he's an author and stuff like that. But you have to reinvent yourself, You look at, I mean, even like Madonna. I've got a friend.
Oh, this would be good.
I've got a friend who loves Madonna so much. He absolutely loves Madonna. And every post is about Madonna. But Madonna has done such a phenomenal job in reinventing herself throughout her lifetime. And I think that reinventing yourself in so many different ways with those 2 examples, effectively what's happened there is everything's teachable as long as you have that open mind to learning.
Yeah. And the courage to do it.
Yeah, I think so. Well, yes, I think so. But also, I think you have to know that there's something better for you out there.
Yeah.
I think that I see a lot of people, I think, who for whatever reason, they'll take on limiting beliefs that hold them back.
Yeah.
And they would blame upbringing, they'll blame, culture, they'll blame society, they'll blame all of these things. And all of those things absolutely, I'm sure, have a provable aspect in a court of law. But here's the thing. As soon as we start to believe this stuff, we get to stay in the same position we're in. If I think I can't go out and do A, B, and C because of X, Y, and Z, and I really believe that, then I get to stay in the same shitty position I'm in.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I think, I think the vast majority of people quietly want to believe that they are capable of something bigger. I really, really, really believe that. And, it's the bullshit stories we tell ourselves that hold ourselves back. But I think, as long as you can open somebody's mind up and they're keen to learn, they're open to learn, and they're going to be proactive with it, and you can build a structure to help them create that behavioral change. I think everything's teachable. I'm not going to go play basketball for acres or anything like that, or run a marathon, but it's like, what's a learnable skill,
Yeah. Maybe some people get turned off because they think that if they're going to change careers or they can't do that if they want to do that, they have to be the best in the world. That doesn't mean you have to be the best in the world. What I mean by the courage to do, I'm going to use perfect example is the big fella again, big mate Ren. He's reinvented himself.
Yeah.
Absolutely reinvented himself in the last year.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit less, but I'll say about a year. He's reinvented himself completely. Career, health-wise, Jesus.
Yeah.
He's looking really good.
And how good's his energy? I mean, he's always had good energy.
Completely different energy.
So aligned,
Yeah, but also what he talked about this as well. It wasn't until he removed himself from that situation where he was with his career.
Yeah.
To then sacrificed, had the courage to do it, and then looked back and realized what he'd left and how what was the word you used? Institutionalized.
Yeah.
That was, and the negativity and everything, the politics, the backstabbing, all that. What now? Look at how happy he is.
Yeah.
Which is awesome to see. And the options he's got now and where he's going, he's unstoppable, that big fella.
Absolutely. And here's the other thing as well. I think that when you go through something like that, when the circumstance gets so dire that you want to reinvent yourself, or you have to make a change, we get to that situation. I think this is why comfort zones often become so dangerous. But when you get to a stage where you just, enough is enough. I've had enough of this shit. I'm going to make a change now. Yes. Then you start to see what you're capable of doing. And it's like, shit, if I can do this, if I've come this far in such a small amount of time at this stage of my life, what else is capable? What else am I capable of? Yeah. And I really believe, and you're a perfect example of this as well, mate, with all of the shifts you're making. It's like, but you have that desire to do it. You've got your motivating factors to do it. And you're starting to see the fruits of your labor, which is beautiful. But you start realizing this now, and you start realizing this, like, it is possible I can make these shifts. Yeah. And then you become unstoppable, because then you start embracing that real growth mindset. And then it's just like, what new things do I need to learn to get the outcome I'm after? I don't currently have it. Somebody else has got it. Or somebody else has got the outcome I'm after. I need to figure out what they've done.
Break it down, and we talked about it today at breakfast. Small steps, you can't go and jump right to the top.
Yeah.
Small steps and consistency.
Yeah.
And give it a month, give it 6 months, train something for 6 months and have a look back, and you'll go, whoa.
Yeah.
Otherwise you just live in that same 6 months over and over again,
Absolutely. So, a big thing on that as well, Cuz, I think, though, is to build that infrastructure to repeat what we keep doing. And a great example of this is, I think, of you and me, you and I starting jiu-jitsu, and we used to travel in together. So it was like there was no ways that either of us was going to get out of that. It's that infrastructure. It's that you're not going. Who are you going to let down? And it's like, if you build that infrastructure, then it's going to give you that much better way of doing it. And Atomic Habits talks about that, which is great for anybody who wants to listen.
James Clear, Atomic Habits. It's a very good book, especially it opens your eyes on how to not only build good habits, but break bad ones. Which I think is the harder one. Breaking a bad habit is a lot harder than creating a new one.
But depends how deep it is, I suppose. Yeah,
it depends on how deep it is. It really does. Hey, listen, we've got some feedback lately on this podcast that we're doing, and it's nearly tear-jerking for me. Like, it's really so heartwarming. Some of the feedback we get, to know that, listen, we don't do this for anything other than helping people. If I keep saying to my wife, I'm just amazed by the fact that people will not only take time out of their day to listen to me talk, and you talk. Well,
listen to us talk. Yeah,
listen to us talk, but then actually take value away from it, something that can help them in their lives, give them some kind of uplift or a skill or a different thought process on it, and then go and use it, and then take the time to say, hey guys, thanks for that. It just, it reinforces how good it is just to help people. That's all I'm after, eh? So anyone that's in this, the feedback, or, says, hey, listen to your podcast, and likes or comments, just thank you very much from the bottom.
Yeah. Absolutely, huge love, folks, for real. It's it's something I think we enjoy to some degree, but it's really knowing that hearing some of the breakthroughs you folks are having is absolutely phenomenal. It really is, and I think we're very, very blessed to be in the position to be able to do it, Cuz, which is awesome.
Absolutely, and on the back of that, anyone out there, any young people out there who want some further advice, or you've got a young person yourself who's looking to go either this way or that way, and give us a yell.
What about old people who want
old people? You're on your own.
I refuse to take on that mantle, bro. I'm not going to be deemed as old. I think when I say getting old, well, actually, no, it goes against what I was going to say. Getting old is mandatory. Growing up is voluntary. So
absolutely,
there we go.
I love being an old man. Come get some. Boys at work can't keep up with me. They always come to me and they always go, oh, cuzzy, do you want to have a break? Do you want to have some smoker? I'm like, don't use me as your excuse, boys. If you want to stop, you sit down and watch. You can do this all day. It hurts. I want to let them know it hurts.
There you go.
I get a lot of prep work to get out of bed, but I'm not going to show them. I'll tell you that much.
Fantastic. Listen, my man, I've got to jump onto another call now. But it's been absolutely phenomenal again, mate. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone listening. We will see you next week.
All right. Take care. Cheers, folks. Thank you so much. And